I have the science. The silent liver signal is hepatic insulin resistance. When the liver stops responding to insulin signal to stand down, it keeps pumping out glucose, gluconeogenesis, even while you sleep and don't eat. And simultaneously, due to selective insulin resistance, keeps building fat, de novo lipogenesis. That's the weight gain even without food mechanism. The overnight glucose dump and the day/night liver clock give me the two parallel threads. This is the fifth Channel 5 script, so I apply script 5 variation, hybrid format, two parallel threads running throughout, what your liver does during the day versus what it does at night, that converge in the protocol. This is structurally the most complex, applied to Channel 5's brisk intellectual mentor voice. You can eat less and still gain weight after 50, and the reason isn't your willpower. It's an organ working the night shift against you. Your liver is supposed to release sugar when you're not eating and stop when you are. But after 50, it stops hearing the stop signal. So at 3 a.m., while you sleep and eat nothing, it dumps sugar into your blood and quietly builds fat. Two shifts, day and night, both rigged against you. Here's the signal that broke and how to fix it. Here's what almost everyone believes, and it's the belief that makes people blame themselves for something chemical. The story goes, weight is calories in, calories out. Eat less, move more, lose weight. So when someone over 50 eats carefully and still watches the scale climb, the conclusion feels obvious and cruel. They must be cheating, or lazy, or lying to themselves about what they eat. That story is incomplete in a way that's costing people their health and their self-respect. Because your weight isn't only set by what you put in your mouth. It's set by what your liver decides to do with it, and what your liver does on its own around the clock, whether you eat or not. Your liver is the master metabolic controller of your entire body. It decides minute by minute whether to store fuel or release it, whether to burn fat or build it. And that decision is made by listening to one hormone, insulin. When insulin says store, your liver stores. When insulin goes quiet, your liver releases. Now here's the key. To understand what goes wrong, you have to watch your liver across two completely different shifts, because it does two opposite jobs depending on the time of day. During the day, when you eat, insulin rises and tells your liver, stop making sugar, the food is here, start storing. That's the day shift. At night, when you sleep and fast, insulin falls, and your liver takes over the job of keeping your blood sugar steady, releasing a slow, careful trickle of glucose so your brain and heart never run dry. That's the night shift. A healthy liver switches cleanly between the two, guided entirely by the insulin signal. After 50, that signal starts to fail, and it fails in a strange, lopsided way that researchers call selective insulin resistance, and it's the heart of this entire story. Throughout this video, keep both shifts in mind, the day liver and the night liver, because the damage shows up differently in each. By the end, you'll see exactly how a single broken signal sabotages you twice over, and you'll know precisely how to repair it. Let's start with the night shift, because this is the part almost nobody understands, and it's where gaining weight without food actually happens. Picture 3 a.m. You're asleep. You haven't eaten in 7 hours. Logically, your blood sugar should be low and your body should be calmly burning fat for fuel. That's what a healthy night looks like. But here's what your liver is doing in the background. To keep you alive overnight, your liver manufactures glucose from scratch, a process called gluconeogenesis, which simply means making new sugar. It's a beautiful safety system. While you fast, your liver builds sugar from spare parts and trickles it into your blood, just enough to keep your brain fueled until breakfast. The amount is controlled by insulin. When insulin is low but present, it tells the liver, easy, just a trickle, don't overdo it. Now here's the failure. In hepatic insulin resistance, your liver stops hearing that easy, just a trickle instruction. Research from Yale and elsewhere is clear on this. When the liver becomes insulin resistant, it produces uncontrolled excess glucose. One paper put it bluntly, hepatic insulin resistance leads to uncontrolled hepatic glucose production. So picture the consequence. At 3 a.m., with no food anywhere in sight, your liver is overproducing sugar and dumping it into your bloodstream. Your blood sugar rises overnight, while you sleep, while you fast. This is why so many people over 50 are stunned to find their morning fasting blood sugar is high. They didn't eat anything, they were unconscious, and yet their sugar climbed. Now you know why. The night shift liver lost its break. And here's where the weight gain comes in. Because high blood sugar at 3 a.m. doesn't just sit there. Your pancreas detects it and pumps out more insulin to deal with it. So now you have a body that's swimming in insulin, even overnight. and insulin is the master fat storage hormone. As long as insulin is high, your body is locked in storage mode. It physically cannot efficiently burn fat. You spend the night in fat storage mode instead of fat burning mode, every night without eating a thing. Read that again. The reason you can gain weight without overeating is that your liver is generating sugar you never consumed, forcing out insulin that locks your fat in place. The calories aren't coming from your fork, they're coming from your own liver, working the night shift against you. A landmark research framing from the journal Diabetologia described this as a vicious cycle. Insulin resistance promotes weight gain, and weight gain promotes more insulin resistance. You get heavier, which makes the liver more resistant, which makes you heavier still. The night shift feeds the loop, but the night shift is only half of it. Because while the night liver is dumping sugar, the day liver is doing something arguably worse, and it explains why the weight you gain goes straight to your middle. What happens during the daylight hours is the more disturbing half of this story. Now switch shifts. It's noon. You've eaten lunch. Insulin has risen, and it's shouting two separate orders at your liver at the same time. Order 1, stop making sugar. Order 2, start building fat to store the extra energy. In a healthy liver, both orders are heard equally. But here is the strangest, most important fact in this entire video. The lopsided failure researchers call selective insulin resistance. When your liver becomes insulin resistant, it doesn't go deaf to insulin completely. It goes deaf to only one of the two orders. It stops hearing, stop making sugar, but it keeps hearing, loud and clear, build fat. Researchers describe this as the liver being resistant to insulin's glucose-lowering action while remaining fully sensitive to its fat-building action. Think about how cruel that is. The one instruction you'd want it to obey, stop flooding me with sugar, it ignores. The one instruction you'd want it to ignore, pack on fat, it obeys eagerly. So your liver does the worst of both worlds at once. It keeps pumping out sugar and it keeps building fat. The day shift becomes a fat factory that won't shut down. And where does that newly built fat go first? Into the liver itself. The liver starts storing fat inside its own cells through a process called de novo lipogenesis, literally making new fat. This is the beginning of fatty liver disease, and it's now extraordinarily common. By some estimates, around 1/4 to 1/3 of adults have some degree of fat buildup in the liver, much of it undiagnosed and completely silent. Here's why that matters for your waistline and your health. A fat-clogged liver is even more insulin resistant than a healthy one. The fat physically interferes with insulin's signal inside the liver cell. So the more fat the liver stores, the deafer it gets to the stop making sugar order. The more sugar it dumps, the more insulin you produce, the more fat it builds. Day shift and night shift now feed each other in a tightening spiral. And the fat doesn't stay only in the liver. It spills out and gets deposited around your organs as visceral fat, the deep belly fat that pushes your waistline out from the inside. Research shows visceral fat then dumps free fatty acids straight back into the liver through the portal vein, making the insulin resistance even worse. It's a feedback loop with no natural off switch. This is why the weight gain after 50 so often lands specifically in the midsection. It's not random. It's the geography of a failing liver signal. If you've ever felt that your belly is growing even as the rest of you stays roughly the same, and you can't explain it from your diet, this is very likely what's happening inside you. That deep, firm belly fat isn't a willpower failure. It's a fat factory running 2 shifts. If this is finally explaining something you've struggled with for years, and you want the protocol that repairs this signal, subscribe now. The steps are coming shortly, and they target both shifts directly. Because there's one more controller we haven't discussed, a master clock that tells your liver when to switch shifts at all, and after 50, that clock starts running late. What almost nobody talks about is that your liver doesn't decide when to switch shifts on its own. It's told when by a clock, and when the clock drifts, both shifts collide. Your liver runs on a circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour internal clock synced to your daily cycle of eating and fasting, light and dark. Research published in leading metabolism journals shows the liver clock has a clear job: to anticipate your day. It prepares the liver to store fuel when you'll be eating and to release fuel when you'll be fasting. The day shift and the night shift are scheduled in advance by this clock. When everything's synced, the switch is clean and perfectly timed. Here's the analogy. Think of your liver as a power plant that's supposed to ramp up production in the morning when the city wakes and demand is high, then power down at night when everyone's asleep. The circadian clock is the schedule that tells it when to ramp and when to rest. Run on schedule, and supply matches demand perfectly. Lose the schedule, and the plant is generating full power at 3 a.m. when nobody needs it. And that's exactly what's happening in your liver. Two things wreck this schedule after 50. First, the circadian clock itself weakens with age. The signal gets fuzzier, the timing less precise. Second, and this is the one in your control, eating late at night. When you eat close to bedtime, you send a store fuel signal to a liver that's supposed to be switching into its fasting night shift. You're telling the power plant to ramp up exactly when it should be powering down. The two shifts overlap. The liver is now trying to store the late meal and run its overnight sugar production at the same time. And the result is a metabolic traffic jam that drives fat storage and worsens insulin resistance. Your liver works two shifts every single day of your life. After 50, the brake fails on one and the schedule fails on both. You can't feel any of it. You only see the result in the mirror. This is the hidden truth that ties the whole video together. Your weight after 50 is not just a function of how much you eat. It's a function of when you eat, how well your liver hears insulin, and whether its internal clock is still keeping time. 3 controllers, 1 organ, working around the clock, and when they fall out of sync, the scale climbs no matter how carefully you count calories. I'd guess a lot of you have been told to just eat less and try harder, while this entire machinery was working against you in silence. Tell me in the comments, have you eaten less and still gained weight after 50? I think you're about to understand why, and that it was never your fault. But here's the genuinely hopeful part, and it's backed by hard science. The liver is one of the most regenerative organs in your body. A 2013 study in diabetes care showed that reducing liver fat produced lasting improvements in metabolism. Fatty liver, in its early stages, is highly reversible. Restore the insulin signal, reset the clock, and both shifts can be brought back into line. The repair is real, and it can begin within weeks. 5 steps. Watch how each one repairs a specific shift, the day liver, the night liver, or the clock that schedules them. Together, they bring the whole system back into sync. Step 1. Stop eating at least 3 hours before bed. This fixes the clock and the night shift at once. Why it works. It gives your liver a clear, uninterrupted signal to switch into its fasting night shift on schedule, instead of forcing it to store a late meal while it's trying to power down. This single change, eating earlier, is one of the most powerful metabolic resets available, and it costs nothing. Step 2. Lengthen your overnight fast to 12 hours or more. Finish dinner by 7, eat breakfast at 7 or later. This targets the night shift directly. Why it works. A longer fasting window lowers insulin for a sustained stretch, and only when insulin stays low can your liver finally release its stored fat and burn it. You cannot burn liver fat while insulin is high. Time without food is the off switch. Step 3. Cut liquid sugar and refined carbs first, before anything else. This fixes the day shift. Why it works. Sugary drinks and refined starches drive de novo lipogenesis, the fat-building process, harder than almost any other food because they flood the liver with the exact raw material it turns into fat. Removing them slows the fat factory at its source. Whole foods, protein, and fiber blunt the insulin spike instead. Step 4. Build muscle with resistance training, 2 to 3 times a week. This repairs the signal itself. Why it works. Muscle is a massive sink for blood sugar, and trained muscle pulls glucose out of the blood without needing much insulin at all. More muscle means lower insulin, which means the liver finally gets a quiet enough signal to hear the stop making sugar order again. Muscle is your insulin sensitivity engine. Step 5. Walk after your meals, even 10 minutes. This helps both shifts every single day. Why it works. Walking after eating lets your muscles soak up the meal's glucose immediately, lowering the post-meal insulin surge that would otherwise tell your liver to build fat. A short walk after dinner is one of the most effective, underrated things you can do for your metabolism after 50. If even one of these steps was new to you, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to more people over 50 who've been blaming themselves for weight that was driven by their liver all along. That one tap lifts a burden off someone who needed to hear it wasn't their fault. And here's the proof it works. Dr. Roy Taylor at Newcastle University spent years studying this exact system, and his research showed that reducing liver and pancreatic fat could actually reverse type 2 diabetes in many patients, restoring the insulin signal that everyone assumed was permanently broken. The liver heals. The signal returns. Even after years of 2 broken shifts, the system responds when you finally give it what it needs. Lower insulin, an earlier last meal, and a clock that runs on time. Step back and see the full picture. 2 shifts. A day liver that's supposed to stop making sugar and store it sensibly. A night liver that's supposed to trickle out just enough fuel to carry you to morning. For most of your life, they ran in perfect rhythm, switching cleanly, asking nothing of you. After 50, the brake failed on one, and the clock drifted on both. And the weight that crept onto your middle was never the verdict on your character, it felt like. It was an organ, working 2 shifts, with a signal it could no longer hear. That's the part I want you to carry out of here. The weight wasn't proof you were weak. It was proof your liver was struggling, and a struggling liver can be helped. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. How long have you blamed yourself for weight you couldn't explain before today? And here's a simple thing to try. For the next week, just finish eating 3 hours before bed. Nothing else. And notice how your morning feels. Let me know what changes. Here's the truth underneath all of it. The line worth keeping. The weight wasn't your weakness. It was your liver, working a shift you never knew about. You don't need to eat less and hate yourself more. You need to give one tired organ the silence it's been begging for. The quiet hours, the earlier dinner, the steady muscle, the on-time clock, so it can finally hear the signal again and switch off the night shift it was never meant to work alone. Share this with someone who's been fighting their own body and losing. They've likely been carrying blame that was never theirs, and this is the correction. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you should. What's coming next is something I've spent months researching, and it will change how you understand your own metabolism. Your liver has been working in the dark this whole time. Tonight, you can finally let it rest.